we're talking about informal evaluations on our 6th show. 2 into evaluations, 4 about PD. People love it. People are loving the 4 about PD. And now we're talking about informal evaluations because we're talking about teacher evaluations. And it's a super important topic because people are polarized. They either love it or they hate it. And I'm on the love it side right now. So I'm going to be pushing on using evaluations more strategically, but I understand some of the qualms with it. So we spent a lot of time on last episode talking about teacher evaluations and the formal side. And then I ended with why we even do it that way. We should do informal evaluations until there's a need to do formal evaluations. And I think that struck a chord with the group. So boom, let's start there. I'll pass the mic to somebody else.
Kim, you go. Because I know you have, because I know you have that teacher perspective and the supportive feeling that you want versus some coming in and maybe it feels punitive or like they're there as a gotcha, or maybe it's just a checklist. They're just doing it because they have to. But I know you have some feelings about the process, and as a teacher going through that, I'd love to get your perspective.
I think when I go back and picture myself as a teacher, I remember having district people kind of take teachers on special assignment, like the district coaches, and they were pushing in and saying, okay, we're going to take groups of teachers from your schools out at like a specific time. You're going to be able to hear from them. They're going to give you information, and then they're going to go into your classroom and you're going to try it. And I remember thinking, well, this feels gross. Like, I don't want them coming in to like my classroom. They don't know me. Like you don't know me. You have no idea. You don't know me as a person. You don't know me as a teacher. You don't know my kids. And I remember them using that format multiple times going, this is good teaching. Like, this is good. It kind of is this informal thing. It's not like your principal, but it's our coaches, right? It's our district. And even if it's just, your coaches, it still feels like the eyes from above are coming in, right? And they're going to go tell whoever, like that's how it felt. And I mean, there's got to be a better way, right? So now fast forward, we at Teaching Inside Out, we do that same format. However, it's completely different because we do know those teachers. We've been working with you for months or years. I know you as a human. I know that you're married, or I know that you're single. I know that you just broke up with somebody. I know like the personal things. I know that you've got 3 kids. I know that, behaviors at home and at school. And we can go in and give them information, right? Give them exactly what they need. And then go in and guess what? It's never like a gotcha, right? I'm never going to go back running to your principal and talking about what I saw. I'm going to support you, run alongside you, work through it with you. I'm not going to let you fail. If you start to flip up and like look at me and go, Kim, I'm going to come in and I'll help you. I'll take over. And I think that's, it's so rare. It's so different, but that's the type of coaching I think that actually feels good and supportive.
Mm-hmm. That speaks to culture though, right? If it is internal.
Yeah.
I remember my first 2 years, the mentor coaches, we started like a week before everyone else came back with those coaches. And, as a new teacher, I thought it was just training and acclimation. And some of it was that, even like touring your school. Where's the copy room and the mail room, all that stuff. But it was done with them. And really what was happening is they were developing relationships with us. And I mean, they did both formal and informal, but I really enjoyed the informal because I didn't feel either way. I didn't feel like I was being evaluated even. It was more about, okay, how do we develop, to your point, Kim, in the last kind of series, that this is a process.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that trust and that they haven't done that work, that's not fun to have people just pop in.
I mean, I think too, when it comes to the culture part, you've got to normalize it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to frequency, like every time with my school leaders and the people who we coach at the Schoolhouse 302, is like, you've got to get to frequency. You've got to normalize the visits. It's got to feel just like wallpaper. Somebody's coming in today. Everybody's driving in thinking somebody's coming in today. At some point, an instructional coach, the consultant we hired, the principal of the school, the assistant superintendent with the assistant principals from a neighboring school or neighboring school district, somebody's coming in today.
Other teachers.
Yeah, there's a process for my peers to come in, my department chair. It's got to be so layered and so normalized that we're not even thinking it's weird to have somebody in here. Or what are they thinking while they're here?
Right.
Who cares? There's somebody in. And if that's not happening, that's, I think, the first step is like peer walkthroughs, department chairs, what's their schedule for walkthroughs, instructional coaches, if you have them, the consultant doing the instructional practices or SEL or whatever it is, and the assistant principals and principals. What's the cadence? I'm going to frequency every time because that's how you normalize it.
Yeah, I want to talk on that, TJ, just a little bit, because I was thinking through this as Kim was talking. I think for our culture of our campus, when I was a teacher trying to become an administrator, I got trained in a system. It was a 3-minute walkthrough is what they called it, but you rarely were in there for 3 minutes. And there was a program that went in, you had to like go in and tap on stuff as far as what you saw, but it was really about students learning and what was going on with them versus what the teacher was doing. So it allowed the teacher to kind of get off their guard as far as like feeling like it was a gotcha. But for me as a teacher to go in, I felt like I was getting so much of a benefit because I was getting to see all of the teachers on our campus teach at some point. And it was just a snapshot. It wasn't like I was in there for 45 minutes. But what I think it also did was it allowed our teachers to say, okay, I know that all of the administrators, plus myself, were potentially going to be in there for that day. And because the district had put such a high number on how many we needed for the school year, it really forced us to have to get in there every single day and see at least 8 to 10 teachers and get in their classroom even for a couple minutes. But I also feel like it just kind of deflated, just like, oh, there's someone coming in my room, versus before it was like when someone walked in, it was get up from my desk, go to try and look busy, go talk to its kid. And it was feeling like a gotcha moment where that frequency just really kind of allowed them to say, someone's coming in at some point today. I don't know when, but most likely someone is going to enter in and take a look at my class for a couple minutes. And they also didn't feel like it was threatening at all because they knew what was being scripted on the evaluation thing as far as the program on the phone was not about them at all. It was really what the kids were doing.
That made me think, because I was thinking there are instructional coaches and TOSAs, teachers on special assignment, that are listening. Yeah. And when I was in that position, right, and I was tasked with, now you're going to go in there and you're going to support these teachers. And the district didn't know what that looked like. I got to create that, right? And so what I started doing was I went in to a school on like a Wednesday, early day or whatever it was after school, right? I would go in and I would talk to them about behaviors, social emotional learning systems, executive functioning, all these things they could bring into their classrooms. And I would hook them by saying, hey, is this going on in your classroom? Right? Like, are the kids doing this? And they're like, yep. I was like, yeah. And guess what? I saw this yesterday. And they're like, oh, she gets it. Right? She understands this. So then they're willing to kind of listen. And then at the end, when I say, okay, so the next steps are this, this, and this, you choose. Where do you want to start? Right? And then I would say, and by the way, next week, like you got Thursday and you got Friday. Okay. But next week, I'm coming in and I'm going to be back to your campus and I'm going to go through every single one of your classrooms all week long. Okay. And some of you might even get a double dip, right? Like I might come in 2 times, right, to come in and check on you. And it was in that moment where they kind of went, crap, right? Like she is coming back in at some point. And then what did they say? And this is elementary, speaking to elementary teachers, right? They were like, well, can we get a sign-up sheet? Like, I need to be ready for this. If Kim is coming back in, I want to know what time. I want to know like what day. I want to sign up for a specific day for her to come in. And when I gave the answer, over and over and over again, because this wasn't just like a one-time thing. Like, nope, I'm just going to walk in and it's going to be okay. Because no matter what's happening, it could be complete chaos. Guess what? That's why I'm here, to support you, right? And it was this kind of like, it was tricky. It's tricky for educators to go, what do you mean it's okay to see the chaos? It's okay if a kid is underneath the table. It's okay if they're jumping on top of the table. It's okay if someone just eloped 20 seconds ago. Like, I've got you. And that's really, really hard for teachers. Like, they feel secure in the sign up, time slot. Why? Because they want to control that. However, with all of these things, like, kids are going to be kids, and that's okay. And all of these things, especially the work that I do, is going to support not just the kids, but going to support you. So yes, that consistency piece, and that cadence, like, I love, like, TJ, you said that, because then when I would go to the next school, what were teachers saying? They're like, okay, get ready. Kim's going to come in on the Wednesday. You got Thursday, Friday to try something. And then she's coming in the following week. And every single school was like that. So they knew it was happening. And that started changing culture and creating trust. So anyways, I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to do this, but that was something that really started changing educators and kind of like loosening up a little bit, so they could feel vulnerable to do some different work.
Yeah, I don't think there's a completely right or wrong way to do it, Kim, to your point. But I do think there are some right ways, some things that are a must, especially for those who are listening. Like, I speak mostly to school leaders, but school leaders who are listening, they're thinking, well, we don't do that, and we only go in 3 times a year, and I don't want to scare people. I think a great place to start is what you just said. It's like, let's have a starting point of a sign-up sheet. Let's have a starting point of, okay, we are going to come in. So that's non-negotiable, but you're going to pick in the beginning, you're going to pick when we're going to be there. And so you're also going to tell us what you want us to see. And then our job is to find bright spots. Mm-hmm. Because I don't care like how chaotic an environment is, there's almost always a bright spot in a classroom. And so if we start with, we're coming, you pick the time, you pick the goal, and we're going to find celebrations, that's a great way to ease in to changing the culture around normalizing the fact that somebody's going to be in my classroom every day. And then teachers who are listening, I would just push my chips into the center of the table on feedback. Say, look, if you're listening to this show, it's probably because you want to be a great teacher, a great educator, a great school leader. That's just like, there's rarely somebody who's tuning into this program who's like, yeah, I suck at this and I don't really care. That's just not the normal guest or listener. But so you care about teaching. I would start there with the culture and saying, I want somebody to come in my classroom at some point every day, every week. How can I get somebody in here to look at what I'm doing and give me feedback? That's got to be the mentality that we have about teaching.
But with what's happening there on the teacher side is, if there really is frequency, what gets normalized is both critical and bright spot feedback, right? Where that's just part of getting better and growing. But if the frequency only happens in April, it doesn't feel super authentic.
No.
It is a culture thing over time, but it allows for you to be, that's just part of the deal. Part of getting better is finding areas of like, we've all had that experience where someone that has built that trust that you respect offers you a little bit of insight, and you're like, I didn't even think about that. That one little thing is going to make my practice that much better.
Or it stings a little bit. Have you ever had that? You're like, like totally. I had a mentor teacher told me something one time about some of my teaching practices, and it stung. But look, after that, I was like, sting away.
I got better.
And I got better. Like, right. I got immediately better from that. And then I was like, no. I know what I did good. Tell me what I did that I need to get better at. And then that became normal. Was like, no, I want to get better at this. I don't want just to tell me what I did well, although I think that's important. But we also need to like feel that little, discomfort.
Yeah. And sometimes a little tweak to a strategy that's previously being employed in one little shift, and it makes all the difference for a teacher. This is a informal meets formal, but I was part of a Japanese lesson study process. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but we adopted this process. We got a grant, and it was a consultant from the outside who we ended up hiring into our department. But we picked a topic or a standard, and we designed a lesson that was like a lab-based lesson. And it was a team of, I think, 6 of us, and we met for an entire semester for this process. And it spits out at the end just one hyper vetted lesson that you now have in your bookshelf as a department or whatever that you can use. And what process is, we designed it. We met 2 or 3 times a week after school as a team, and we came up with an idea, designed it, and then you have a sequence. First person gives the lesson, whole team's in the room looking for different evidence, just seeing how effective it is, both from the teacher lens, student lens. But what was cool about it is a couple things. First person gives it, and you're just, like you said, TJ, I'm just pushing all my chips in here because we're in this together. And then we met after that, the rest of that week, and feedback and iterated on the lesson. The next week, different person on the team gave it. All of us were in their classroom, and we did that 6 times. Everyone on the team got a chance to do it. So in the end, you had this really well vetted lesson, but more importantly, you found yourself in all of your colleagues' classrooms and in these conversations, and you were stealing all those little tips and strategies. Oh, wow, it had nothing to do with the lesson. It's just how Josh started his lesson or whatnot. And I think we all got a lot better. And then we did it again the following semester.
Yeah.
Just got being.
I want to touch on that in just a second as far as the peer-to-peer, because I think there's a lot of strength in that as far as feedback, similar to what TJ was talking to with his mentor teacher. But I want to go to what Kim was talking about when she goes in. She's talking about, and this is probably something we need to normalize also, is just getting to know the person and what's going on in their life. And I used to do relationship walks as an administrator, and this was not talking about school at all, not talking about the lesson, any feedback as far as their instruction. It was just purely going in to talk about what's going on in their world outside of school to get to know them. And I think if we're really looking to partner with the teacher, then I think there needs to be a breakdown of that wall that's established already by, I'm your leader, you're a subordinate. As much as we don't want that dynamic to exist, it still does for a lot of people. And so, if I'm coming in saying, hey, I care about you as an individual, as a person, I want to know about what your hobbies are, what you like, what's going on in your family, what are some things you're struggling with. Obviously, you're going to get a better output, not only in their work in the classroom, but then also the relationship that you've established, so that when you do need to provide maybe some critical feedback at some point, that it's met with understanding because they know your heart versus it's just an evaluation and they're just a number on a page.
That was so beautiful.
Well, some of the feedback, if you haven't read one of TJ's many books, but I think that's something we have to think, at least for the leaders on the call, because just frequency by itself, just being in there and you're kind of a jerk or you're kind of judgy, right? The candid and compassionate feedback's important. It's got to be real. Don't blow smoke up my rear, but also get it that this is in process. There's got to be a compassion, some grace to it as well. So I think it can't just be frequency alone.
No, for sure. It can't be frequency alone. I think frequency matters, but the quality of the feedback also matters. Meaningful feedback, like a couple of things with it. When we train school leaders on candid and compassionate feedback, that first book we wrote in 2018, which is still really popular in the feedback space, we tell leaders that they need to build their feedback muscle to be able to leave feedback before they leave the room. Mm-hmm. So when I was a principal, we did every teacher every week. Every teacher got a visit every week. We made sure that visit was a different period of their instruction. We made sure that visit was a different day of the week. And we met and we gave them feedback. We hit send on the feedback before we left the room. We wrote about that. We build structures for school leaders to be able to do it. And the first muscle you need is finding bright spots. Celebrating. We call it specific praise. And what does that feel like to go in every teacher's classroom every week and to find bright spots, and to be able to do that on a regular changes the dynamic, like you said, Mitch, from frequency to what can I expect? We're going to elevate. You can't lift the system by holding it down. That doesn't work.
Right.
So the way that we elevate practice, because the two things that this is, now I'm going to get really nerdy on like behavioral psychology and neuroscience.
Yes, you are.
But like the behavioral psychology and neuroscience on praise actually is really good for the leader. Like if you don't think that it works, it actually reinforces behaviors and it instills pride. And those are really good things to have in the people who are working in the most important spaces in our schools, which is the classroom. Yep. So let's start there.
But it's the two-way formative feedback loop, because it's helping the teacher get better if it's quality feedback, and it's giving the leader pulse on the campus culture overall and individual teachers. And the truth is, it's analogous to what, for all the teachers on the call listening in, this is what we do with our students. The more frequency you have quality input from them, and the more frequency of quality feedback that they're reading. So having mechanisms or systems in place to make sure they see your feedback, if it's written or what it might be. It's the same thing, right?
100%.
Yeah.
There was a teacher so we just got back from our teacher retreat in Wyoming, and there was a teacher who was there, and she was talking about, she was in the classroom, right, for years and years and years and years, then became a music teacher and got to teach across the district in different schools, which is totally different, right? And when she was so she was a colleague of mine when she was an elementary school teacher, and then like at the same school. And then when she was working for the district, I was also working for the district. And as a coach, right, as a TOSA, teacher on special assignment for social emotional learning. And recently we were talking at this retreat, and she was like, Kim, when I reached out to you, because I had principals who were saying, you've got to change. Like what you're doing right now as a music teacher, you've got to change, right? And she was like, I didn't see it. I didn't know why I was getting in trouble. I didn't know why I was getting pulled out into meetings. She's like, and when I reached out to you for support, she's like, I knew that I could because there was trust there, right? And when you came in and you observed me, you came up to me at the very end and you told me the things that you saw. I would say, TJ, the bright spots, right? You told me that you saw this, this, and this, whatever those things were. She's like, but then you also said, and I'm thinking maybe you could, whatever this other thing was, right? And she goes, and it was in that moment where I was like, oh, I see that, right? You need somebody looking from the outside in so that you can teach, we always say, from the inside out, which is where teaching inside out now comes from, my business. But that's what I was doing, right? You look from the outside in, you give them those bright spots, you celebrate the good things, and then you also give feedback, not criticism, but feedback so that they can grow and learn. And so, I love that she was able to say that in a group of women, and they all were like, yeah, that is how myself and my mentor teachers work, right? We're going to tell you the things that we saw you doing that were awesome, right? But we're also not afraid to say, and this is what your next steps are.
Mm-hmm. Because Kim, the other thing that's true about the brain science is that we don't do a good job of reflecting on what we're doing while we're trying to do it well. And so we think it's like great to talk about reflective practitioners, but the more master the teacher is, the more likely they can do that. But our novice and intermediate folks, people in, their early stage of their career, they're just not like there's probably a small percentage of teachers in the school that can really reflect on what they're doing while they're doing it. And so everybody else needs either somebody in the back of the room or a camera or a recording of some sort to be able to either look at themselves or to have somebody else look at it with them. And one step further is actually to have a second person there so that before you give the feedback to the teacher, you can say, did you see what I saw? Because even our own eyes and ears can fail us when we're there. it's such a dynamic environment when you put a teacher in front of 25, 30 kids and they're supposed to impart knowledge and skill that, we need to support that through feedback. And that's why I like the informal part as well as the formal part.
Mm-hmm.
When we pull teachers out, like when we're working with a group, right? We go in a classroom, teacher does something, or two work together, or we work alongside them. We come out, we have conversations together as a group, right? Usually it's a group of about, 5 to 10. And usually they'll say what they saw, right? I will always say something. And then I will always look at my mentor teachers. I usually have either one or two, or maybe even if we're lucky, 3 of them are all with me. I'll go, anything else, girls? Did I see like anything else you want to add in there?
Right.
And it is because they're like, oh yeah, and this. And I'm like, oh yeah, that. And they're like, oh yeah, and this. And I'm like, yeah, that. And we're so fortunate because we've been doing this work together for so long that, and literally it's like, I have my brain, they now have my brain, it's multiplied, right? But they also have their unique experiences with other teachers too, that they can bring into that. So yeah, the other perspectives is crucial, I think, because you do miss things. You do. Even you guys, I was looking at footage again from the retreat and things that they had posted, I had missed. And I was thinking, oh my God, that was an amazing moment. Or, oh my gosh, I said that, or you said that, I missed that too. And so again, it is important that yes, you record yourself or you have somebody come in, but I think the power is the multiple perspectives. I love these. By the way, I do have a degree in psychology. So when you say I'm going to get nerdy and get brain science on you and everything, I'm in psychology, I'm like, let's freaking go.
I'm all about it. Let's, you know what I mean? I'm going to crack a joke and then do brain science.
Go ahead.
So there's a mindset, right, Mitch, as far as like having to prepare folks, because that's not the culture for every campus. I can think of when I was student teaching, this was already established where it was just the expectation that if you have an off period or you got some downtime, you just go into another classroom. And it doesn't matter if it's the same subject, same grade level, you just do it. And I loved it. I mean, obviously I was looking to grow. I was very young in my development. So for me to like go in and see this veteran teacher doing like rock star stuff was amazing for myself, but it was really cool also to see other teachers that just volunteered their time to go in to get better. And I was like, man, I want to work in a school like that. Well, then I went into my first school and that was not the culture. And everyone was like, don't you dare come in my classroom. Right. Mm-hmm. So then for me, it was a culture shock because I'm thinking that really sucks because I've seen what it can be and how much better it made everyone. In addition to the fact that we were just like a huge team. We're all there for each other. We're all there to help in any way possible and to grow. And then you go into this like very box-like silo of environment that's like, nope, get out. I don't want you in here. This is my classroom. I do what I do. You do what you do. And for me, it killed my heart a little bit because I was like, that's not the culture I want to work in. I'd much rather have this, but I also know that has to be established over time as far as a mindset of you're not there to judge me. You're not there to tell me what I'm doing wrong or fill in the negative emotion, but it's really about growth.
And if you're a teacher in a school that you feel like you're in that culture, and we talked about this in the previous 4 episodes, start that yourself. Even if it's just one other person. My first year, Stephanie Wong was across the hall. We were both brand new, both teaching the same things, but of course, very different people. And we met every single day after school. And some of it was subject area collaboration because she was bio undergrad, I was geo, and we taught earth science and biology. So it's not that we didn't know those subjects. It's just I knew the geology a little better than she, and she knew the biology, but we were talking strategy, and we were constantly not only each other being in each other's classrooms, kids too. We'd be like, you're going to go over here for this lesson and you go over here. And it started to create this little microcosm. And I don't think that's the only reason it grew on our campus, but over time, people, if they're not that person that TJ you're saying is not even listening to this anyway, if you're listening to this, then you would probably be like, hey, I want in on that. Once a week, let's meet at lunch and talk shop or after school or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I would actually also encourage, so that's really cool to do the same subject. But I would also encourage, like, get into
Other.
subjects that are foreign to you,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
you'll notice things that you don't necessarily notice in the same subject, like math teachers, certain things they have to do to get
Mhm.
kids to work problems. And then one layer more is, like, if you can get into your CTE teachers or like a orchestra or band, man, you can learn a lot from those folks. Like, what
Yeah.
I learned from orchestra teachers, this when I was a middle school principal, we had a orchestra teacher, and like I'd go in the beginning of the year, and I'm like, oh wow, like this
They're
doesn't
bad.
sound that good. Like, but then I keep going in. Like I said, I went every teacher every week, and I would keep going in. I'm like, oh my gosh, and then I go to the concert, and I'm like, these kids can play. They can play these instruments. I don't even know what the names of these instruments are, and they can play them, and they're 11. And it sounds good. It's pleasing to the ear. And it wasn't 6 weeks ago. I want to say that in the microphone on stage, as the principal. I'm like, listen, I've heard your kids play not good music. And tonight you're going to hear great music. And that's because of our orchestra teacher. But think about the transferable, like, skills of a teacher to be able to do that over time and see real learning taking place.
Mhm.
Wow. That's cool. And CTE teachers too, plug for my CTE teachers. Like,
Yep.
if you got a welding teacher in your school and kids are working with welding and fire, I would go watch that teacher in their craft, because they know something that, I was an English teacher. They know something about project-based learning that I just didn't know, even though I was trying to do it.
Yeah, I used to hang out in the wood shop, my buddy Ethan's class, and it was a shop, like a big full dust collection system, like amazing shop. There's no way you can have eyeballs on all the kids.
No
And
way.
they're running like routers and table saws and
Mm-mm.
lathes and man, his management was down though. It was really interesting to watch him.
Or
you
the theater teacher. One time something happened while I was assistant superintendent. Parent called me and they were like, well, something happened and why wasn't there a teacher there? And I was like, well, there's a backstage, there's a front stage, there's a theater, there's the black box, there's
dressing
the
room.
dressing room, and there's one teacher in there.
Yep.
Like,
and they're building the
Sets.
stage out
and they're using screw guns, and there's people outside cutting wood, and there's somebody in the booth mixing sound. Like, there's one lady in there, and she's not watching all those kids. And we're not going to turn around and do that the next time. But you can learn a lot about classroom management by watching somebody do that and what structures they have in place for certain.
I was going to say, I mean, you guys are coming from the secondary world. So elementary teachers, they always say, like, especially if they teach, I don't know, kindergarten, right? Like, well, I've got nothing in common with my 5th or 6th grade colleagues, like, right? And so what we always say is, you guys, it's the same but different. You've still got kids who are crawling under tables, even in 5th grade. Like, you really, really do. Kids are still eloping and running out of the classroom.
That
Kids
happens on all levels.
Yes.
Everything you've said happens in secondary too.
Okay. So seriously, everything is the same but different. And I remember when I first was out of elementary world and now plucked out, and I had to be coaching teachers who were in 18 elementary schools, 7 middle schools, 4 high schools. And I kind of went, huh? How do I do what I was doing in 1st grade really everywhere? And I was like, Kim, remember, it's the same but different. And I remember walking into, when you guys were talking about like your specials and stuff like that, I would say specials, but I walked into an art teacher's room, right? She taught ceramics, and she now, I knew you'd love that. So now she is the visual and performing arts. She is plucked out of her high school, and now she kind of is that TOSA role for the district, my former school district. But I walked into her classroom and I went, hell yeah. Like, everything she was doing, it was same but different. Everything that we had talked about, all the systems that are running our classroom. And I was like, can I please bring in, right, 3rd grade teachers into this and have them go, okay, now I see this. And again, when we work with schools and districts and we get the pushback of, it's different. Kim, oh my God, middle school is so different. Every time I'm like, No, you guys, what you really need to see, the power in all of this is for middle school teachers to go and observe in elementary, and elementary to go into middle. And when we did that just a handful of months ago, towards the end of this past school year, we did that. And to have, oh my gosh, one of my favorite teachers, he's phenomenal, like the longest beard ever, like down here, the coolest guy, right? The coolest. He taught middle school, and he went into an elementary school classroom, and he's looking around and he's like, wow, this is badass in here. And then to watch hit this, I think she taught 5th grade, to watch her and listen to her with her 5th graders, he's like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, I can talk like that. I can do that with my kids. And it was just, there's so much power in all of that. There truly is.
I think what's different, and I'm learning a lot about this as a secondary person writing this second book with Sarah, TJ, our mutual friend, who's spent her entire career in 1st grade. And I would say there's similarities, but primary folks need the respect due to them, and they just don't get it. I'm telling you. But that's what I'm learning. I'm like, wow, what you all do, it's just like, it is the same, but here's how it's different, I think, Kim, and you can tell me as the primary teacher on the call.
She's ready to correct her right now, give you some feedback.
Yeah, so there's absolutely similarities. One of the differences, 1st grade, what would you teach first? First. Okay. So 1st grade, you expect the kid to run under and sleep under the desk, or not sleep, or run outside. You expect all that. And when you get to middle school, the expectation, often unspoken, you don't do that. Like that is absolutely not allowed. And then we get into management issues and blah, blah, blah. But I think it would be beneficial for secondary folks to adopt that perspective of that it is the same in a lot of ways. Yes, there is an expectation as you get older that you're more independent and self-regulated and goal-driven and blah, 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 blah. But if you're not making those things explicit for 13-year-olds, you're going to see some stuff. So that's just what I feel like I'm learning in this book writing process, is that what's happening in primary, it's legit. It's legit. When it's done well, it's just like, I used to walk into my mom's 2nd grade classroom. I'd last about 5 minutes. I'd be like, are you kidding me? Right? Like, and that's what in the first book I refer to as like a teacher's zone of genius. I think that's a thing. Like, this is what I do, and I do it really well. And I was very much aware of the fact that like 2nd grade is not my zone. 9th grade, I'd always joke with my mom, because the first thing she would do when I'd walk in the room, no joke, she'd be like, oh, a credential teacher's here. I got to go pee. And she would leave every time, because you're in there, like, you're self-contained, and I'd be like, I'd panic. I would literally panic, because the little kids would like immediately recognize that Mrs. Weathers' son is here. And they would all like rush me, and they'd want to touch me and hug me, and they're all smiling, and they're all stinky from recess. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm dying here. And we joke with my mom. She's like, I don't know how you do high school. I'm like, give me a 15-year-old with attitude that never smiles and doesn't want to be at school. And I'm like, I got that. Like, I actually love those interactions, and I feel like I'm really good at it. So there's this like zone, but I'm telling you what's going on in primary. If you're a primary teacher on the call, props.
Yeah, props to that. Like, telling somebody they got to get 23 7-year-olds from their desk to a carpet in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Not even
magic.
So the book we're writing, right, it's about executive functioning in primary years, and it's so clear that there's these core EFs. There's the higher orders, which is what I talk about in book 1. And you're right, TJ. It's like, okay, how do we walk into the classroom every day? What do we put, like, the whole idea of routine and ritual? And I mean, how do we get to the carpet? And then now we're going from the carpet back to whatever it is, some other place. And do you know, I mean, it's just fascinating.
Okay, but like also, and we can wrap this up soon, but like, when you're really just transitioning, it's not just moving from point A to point B. Like, you got to put stuff away. You got to take out things. You got to rip out a paper. You got to take out your pencil. You got to prepare. It's like, and by the way, right? How many things in your brain, directions, can you hang on to as a 6-year-old, right?
Right.
And so one of the things, and I'll
As
just,
a 15-year-old,
right,
a
totally.
35-year-old.
But
That's what I was going to say. Adults too.
Adults too.
And so one of the things that we always teach teachers is they need to visualize themselves in the future before that you even let them go. And they need to act it out. And so, I mean, we teach into all of that, and that's all executive functioning. And when you do it well, oh boy, the magic that can happen, even with your 5-year-olds, right? It can be like picking up things and preparing for things, like without the bouncing, without the rolling, without the whatever it is, the crazy. It really can be done when it's done well. But like what you're saying, we need to teach that. We need to practice
But
that.
see, that's what I'm saying. You say it's similar but different.
Yep.
The mindset of a gifted primary teacher is we have to teach everything, every single step that like Lisa Delpit's book, Other People's Children, that you have to make explicit that which is implicit in the classroom. But in the secondary classroom, so often there are these assumptions and hidden expectations, this whole hidden curriculum. And then we get frustrated at young people when they don't know. But I mean, I've walked through with organized binder walkthroughs. I was in a 3rd grade classroom, I think it was 3rd, and I was just blown away because of that mindset. This teacher walked through, okay, so we're going to do this math activity. I write about it in book 1. So because we're doing this math activity, which workbook do we need? And, and we all got on the, yep, you're right. That's the workbook we need. Okay, because it's that workbook and not this other one, this do we need? Oh, we need this. Okay, all right. And we're doing this assignment in that workbook. And because it's this kind of assignment, what tools do we need? I was like, I need my ruler. I need my pencil. Okay, take out your workbook. Let's all write our name. Like everything was done so that and what you're referring to, Kim, it's all executive functioning, but it's working memory capacity, which is the engine for learning. And if I'm trying to hold, we know like some researchers say 8, some say 6, but the consensus about now is like at most we can do about 4, right? And if I'm 6 years old, but I would argue if I'm 15, it matters too. Like the more I can offload that cognitive load, more I can lighten that load, then I just have more capacity to focus on what I'm trying to learn, focus on self-management, and therefore it's related to classroom management issues. And I think that's what happened in my secondary, in my 9th grade classroom with clarity, modeling, and routine, all the stuff in book 1. It was I didn't know that, but it was trying to make explicit all these implied expectations, these assumptions. And if we can make no assumptions about what kids know and what they can do, it's going to go better, because you're literally back to the cognitive science of it, TJ and Kim, the psychology. And I know Josh is jamming on this too, but
I'll nerd out with you.
We can reduce working memory or reduce the cognitive load on working memory. It's game changer.
Okay, so
can I say something about my own working memory? You ready?
2? You can hold 2 things?
No, I don't think I can hold 1, but I have read maybe the Rhino Suit, Aspire to Lead, the Language of Behavior, X-Men, at least 30 times while we've been on this call, once a minute.
I almost had a note for you. I was going to hang right here for you, TJ.
You should.
You
should start.
I forgot to put it. I was going to say, TJ, don't read this. I was going to have a sign right here for you.
That's crazy. But listen, if you don't know what that inside joke is, then listen to the last episode.
That's probably a good segue.
One more. I want because I've done this in terms of we were talking about informal evaluations about a half hour ago. The best informal evaluation I ever did, the same guy that led the Japanese lesson study, and I may have mentioned this before, Octavio Rodriguez, gifted teacher, and I was brand new. Same thing, Josh, like you were saying, just like hungry to be better, and did not feel equipped from my graduate program. And what I would do is I would hide a flip camera, and a phone would work these days. I'd hide it in a plant in the back of my room. Nobody knew it was being filmed. and I would just film whole class periods. And then he and I would get together and he would cook. It's a great guy. He would have me over to his apartment. He would cook and we would hang out and we would just watch the video. And he was a veteran, like super gifted teacher. And to what we were saying earlier, the whole idea of bright spots, what I call gold stars, and critical feedback. When you watch yourself from the back of the room, it's super creepy, but it's super valuable. It's like,
it's like an athlete,
and you can't like go show it to anybody unless you get waivers and all that. So, but if you're just keeping it private, it's, talk about informal evaluation, but that critique is important. You got to have one or two or three people in the room to talk about it and be vulnerable. I just wanted to throw that out there because it really transformed my practice. You were like, look at what all those kids are doing in the back row. Like they're not even paying attention. They're not even on task. And I have no idea because I'm all the way at the front of the room. Like I think little things like that, right?
Okay, Josh, I'm going to let you wrap it up. Before you wrap it up, though, I was thinking when you were saying that about filming, I was like, oh my gosh, I used to do that as a dance teacher. So I coached high school dance team, and I also taught little ones like ages 5. Well, I would say to 75. I had a 75-year-old tap dancer teacher who she would at 75 years old compete every single year. So it's 5 to 75, right? But when I taught, I would record, and of course I would be in there so I could hear my tone that I used with my teens, right? My groups of girls. That was something to acknowledge. I was like, ooh, Kim, okay, yeah, you're on fire today, but I would record them and doing whatever routine we were doing. And then we would all watch it together and we would critique, right? We would stay silent the first time and then we would watch it again and we'd critique and we would fix things, right? So it could be perfect because in the dance world, perfection is the only way, right? You only are good enough if you get first. Like that's the mentality there, right? But thinking classroom wise, how cool would it be to like watch yourself as a class? Right. I'm just thinking, especially for like elementary kids, like, oh, let's watch this. What did this look like? What did this transition look like? Right. When we went from our desk to the carpet, especially in the beginning of the school year, just speaking for my elementary school teachers, we want to teach into those skills. We don't want to expect them. Right. And if we're explicitly teaching what's expected and we are maybe reflecting in real time also, how cool would that be for kids to kind of start to learn how to self-reflect also and then celebrate growth along the way? Just, I don't know. That like idea came as you were talking.
Just as long as you lean into the bright spots.
Yes, for sure.
Because it wouldn't be like, TJ tells stories about himself as a student in the classroom. You can't always be like, look at TJ.
Agreed. I was thinking the same thing. I'm going to get called out every time. Like, that kid's never going to make it from the desk to the carpet. Like, look at him. He's making us all look bad.
No.
TJ's running down the hall again. Here we go.
I really, truly, because I have seen teachers use ideas and then use it for punishment and squashing. And if you can we always talk about goal setting and what can we do as a class so that we can have a smooth transition or so we can feel calm in this transition. What can we each do? Turn and talk with a partner, put it on a Post-it note, put it up on as a visual. You definitely need visuals to support kids. But I think, I think that reflection piece and learning, like teaching kids how to do that might be kind of powerful too. Anyways, Josh.
Let's wrap up. Josh will wrap us up. But I want to say, I think because of what you just said, Mitch and Kim, we should do a whole episode on tips, tools, and tactics for doing informal and formal evaluations better, including things like AI, reflection sheets, video recording, swivels. Let's talk about that for an episode, maybe.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up swivels because we purchased those for our teachers and that was a huge tool for us too, TJ. So yeah, super excited about the next conversation. Obviously, we have a lot to talk about for this extra long episode for you, but hopefully you can see that we really do enjoy each other and there's a ton of experiences, different roles. We're coming from different places in the country, and we're here to help. So as I've said before, if you're in Spotify, you can definitely drop a comment in there, or if you have a question, I love that platform because you can get feedback, or on YouTube in that comment section. We would love for you to like the video, share it out. Also, if you have any questions, any comments, any feedback, we will definitely take that. But we're seeing growth in all of the different platforms between YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And we just love the fact that you're not only tuning in, but we would love for you to share it out to other educators, people that you know that maybe need the conversation, because these are important topics for everyone, regardless of your role. And we're just so excited about just this community that is being created through this VIBE Edu, but also a movement that we're trying to construct here as we're trying to make the education world different than what it is now. And so if you're a part of that, we'd love for you to join. And just thank you again for being here with us. I'm going to try and put all of our websites also in the show notes. So make sure you're connecting with each of us, either on social media or through our websites. And if something hits a chord and you have any questions or we can support you in any way, please make sure you do that and reach out. We would love to connect with you. And with that, we will see you next week for another VIBE Edu podcast.